this event here, as well as the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice for sponsoring this event. So today is Wrongful Conviction Day. Wrongful Conviction Day, for those of you who might not know, is an international day to raise awareness of the causes and remedies of wrongful convictions and to recognize the tremendous personal, social, and emotional costs of wrongful convictions for innocent people and their families. On Wrongful Conviction Day, organizations and individuals across the world are encouraged to hold awareness-raising events with the goal of one day having a Wrongful Conviction Day added to the global calendar. And obviously the ultimate goal is to raise awareness worldwide to the problem of wrongful convictions. To start off the events for today, I would first like to call Professor Sobie to the podium, who will be bestowing the Sobie-Pasternack Award.
Hard to believe. 19 years in honor of my sister, who was a practicing attorney in Nassau County, and for many years the passion was civil liberties, and she was a volunteer lawyer for the ACLU and litigated several ACLU cases. Her dream was to retire and become a full-time ACLU. Unfortunately, she never achieved this. In 19 years, we've had many, very honored, meritorious awards. The award tonight continues that. I can't think of any of the 18 prior recipients who deserve it, merited more than Jeff, and it's a great honor to formally present you with the award.
So now I would like to formally introduce Jeff Deskovic to the audience. Jeff is an internationally recognized expert on wrongful convictions and the founder of the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation, which has freed 7 wrongfully convicted people. And has helped pass changes in the law pertaining to videotaping interrogation and identification reform. Jeff is an advisory board member of the coalition group It Can Happen to You, which spearheaded the recently passed new law in New York, creating the country's first commission on prosecutorial conduct. A 3L student here at the Elisabeth Haub School of Law at Pace University, in pursuit of his dream of exonerating others as an attorney, Jeff's motivation is that he was exonerated himself via DNA testing after spending 16 years in prison from the age of 17 to 32 for a rape and murder that he did not commit. Jeff.
Wow. I'm not often at a loss for words, but demonstrates the highest level of work in the area of civil rights. I have to say it's the most meaningful award that I've gotten to date. I've received a few that mean something, but this one means more sentimentally because it's here at the law school where I'm a student. And in many ways, wrongful conviction is civil rights work. So it means a lot. I can hardly believe the fact that I've arrived here at in the 3L year. It seems like just yesterday I was just struggling to try to get in. It's not easy to get into law school, but to then get in and to be in my 3rd year, I feel like the wind is at my back in some ways. Yet law school is still a handful, even in the last year. And when I think about what I have to do yet with respect to this semester and all 5 of my classes, and I think about next semester's classes, and I think about the bar, and I think about the often forgotten but equally important New York State Bar, it's still quite a lot to go, and it can seem daunting, but like I was advised earlier tonight, don't think about that, just think about your initial set of classes, just think about this semester, and I'm going to do that. And now I'm going to change my thoughts just a little bit to what we're here tonight about. Today is Wrongful Conviction Day. It's the 3rd event here at the law school, and earlier tonight I had a great conversation with Dean D'Agostino, and I was informed that Wrongful Conviction Day, the tradition of having it at the law school, will in fact continue in future years, even though I won't be a student, but the event will continue to be held. So according to the National Registry of Exonerations, there are 2,272 documented exonerations. And that's just from when the research started. I forgot if it's 1989 or 1981. I'm sorry, 1989 or 1991. But those are the people that made it out. That's not the people that are still in. But what causes wrongful conviction? Well, there's many causes of wrongful conviction. Coerced false confessions have been the cause of wrongful convictions in 25% of the DNA-proven wrongful convictions, with the reforms in this area, of course, being videotaping interrogations where the camera is on from the beginning to the end, focused not just on the interrogator, but also on the person being questioned. Having a pre-trial hearing where the accuracy or truthfulness of the confession is evaluated rather than just having a Huntley hearing. That's certainly another reform that's gained some currency in the last 5 years. And of course, rounding that out, the admission of false confession expert testimony into the courtroom. The experts, of course, don't give an opinion on the ultimate issue of whether a confession is false or not. That's something for the jury, but instead they provide contextual information to judges and juries that's beyond common sense, beyond everyday experience, getting into what are the factors that could lead a person to falsely confess, so that the fact finder can then determine if that is the case in the case of bar or not. Misidentification has been the cause of wrongful conviction in 75% of the DNA-proven wrongful convictions. Videotaping the lineup, having the double-blind method where the officer administering the lineup doesn't know who's suspected. Sequential viewing, one person after another rather than everybody at once, so that there's not a comparison made and the person who most closely resembles is picked. Telling the witness that the actual perpetrator may not necessarily be in the lineup, and informing them that the investigation will continue even if no identification is made, so there isn't any pressure. And lastly, the officer doing the lineup should not give a congratulatory statement at the end after someone has been selected, because that artificially enhances the level of confidence in the witness, which will obviously will impact the trial. Incentivized witnessing, informant testimony, sometimes referred to as snitch testimony, that's been the cause of wrongful conviction in 15% of the DNA-proven wrongful convictions. Some of the reforms in this area would include an external evidence corroboration requirement. In other words, that nobody should be convicted based only on an informant. There should be at least one other piece of external evidence. Prosecutorial misconduct is one of the main causes of wrongful conviction. In fact, it's a commonality that runs through many of the wrongful conviction cases. Later on in the program, Professor Gershman, who's widely considered to be the country's leading expert on prosecutorial misconduct, who's going to get into the role of prosecutorial misconduct in causing wrongful convictions. I'll just briefly say that withholding exculpatory material, threatening witnesses, suborning perjury, not correcting perjured testimony, improper opening arguments and closings, those are all factors. Bad lawyering, Professor Gershman is going to discuss that later on. That certainly is a cause of wrongful conviction. You need to limit the caseload. It's not unusual for one public defender to represent 70, 100 cases simultaneously. Equal pay for both sides is important, so that the message that defense work is less important than prosecutorial work is not conveyed. We don't want the best talent going over to one side into private practice. Having an even playing field in terms of manpower and experts and investigators, so that there isn't lopsided between the public defender's office and the district attorney's office. No shortage of junk sciences, from shaken baby syndrome to bite mark testimony. My favorite, if it wasn't the cause of serious outcomes, dog scent testimony, where the dog is given an item to smell and then something from the suspect, and the dog barks, and that's interpreted to mean that the dog recognized the item, and it would be laughable, except that people have been convicted in Florida and in Texas based upon that. Fingerprints, where there's not really a consensus as to how many points of match have to be in order to actually constitute a match. There's blood typing, which is not actually a junk science, but the problem is it doesn't discriminate enough. It doesn't narrow down close enough to saying that somebody is in a blood type is not really that probative at all. So these are the causes of wrongful conviction. I did a light overview as to the reforms. So I mentioned earlier that in Wrongful Conviction Day, we are raising awareness about wrongful convictions, and we got to think about when the wrong person is sent to prison, then we're not just sending them, but we're also sending their family, and not just their immediate and their extended family, and then in a larger sense, you're also leaving society at risk because the actual perpetrator is free and can strike again. That happened in my case. The actual perpetrator killed the second victim just 3.5 years later, who was a school teacher and World War II. So at this time in the program, I'm going to introduce really briefly our future Dr. St. Jean Judy. He's finishing up a doctoral dissertation, and it's on the impact of wrongful conviction on the children of the wrongfully convicted. And so we're going to ask him to share a few words with us at this time.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is St. Jean Judy, and I'm from Walden University. I'm working on my PhD, and my dissertation is based on the psychosocial impact of wrongful conviction on children, on the left behind children. And this slide here, because I only have 1 minute, and at the end of the slides, I will have like a little video for you. One of the children who sent me that video said that everywhere you go, they pass the message for me. Okay? So here, when wrongful conviction happened, you have the children ended up into 3 categories. Some of them goes to, some of them go here to foster care. Some of them stay with their parents, and either some of them goes also to either the grandparents or relatives, right? And if you look at, because I don't have time, I'm just gonna go through it really quick. Anytime you see those little 2 hands and handcuffs, these are all the children who have been arrested and been in prison. Those blue are the children who have been committed violent crimes. Okay, and it's so small you guys cannot see it, but I know that I'm getting some of them involving robbery, shoplifting, and aggravated assaults, manslaughter. This guy committed manslaughter. He went to the same prison with his father. And while he's in prison with his father left, got exonerated, and he stayed there for like about two years. And him, Papo, this is the one who's gonna be speaking at the video. He was 9 years old when his stepfather and mother was wrongfully convicted. His stepfather got the death penalty, and he got executed. He got executed for a crime. So, okay. Well, I'll go to the next slide. That will be available, and Jeffrey will share it with people. And not only the behavior, the children's behavior being yes. The impact of conviction. In the children education, we have told them travel to school, from middle school, 2 from high school while in high school, and that affects more the boys than the girls. Interviewers. Interviewed 13 participants. And only one boy ended up going to high school, but while in high school because of his while in high school, they've been telling him that he has ADHD. So he never attempt to go to college. And among all of them, only one of them who went to college and had a bachelor's degree. We had those yellows, 3 girls who still going to school and Friday somewhere. 2 of them has been in college for 6 years. Just to get an associate. Paco here, he was 9 years old when his mother and his stepfather was wrongfully convicted, and instead of taking him home, they put him in prison. And then after that, they sent him to foster care. While he's in foster care, at 2 o'clock in the morning, he said that they're going to pick him up and tell him that he's going someplace, and then they put him in front of a grand jury, and the prosecutor is harassing him so he can testify against his parents. 4 children, they choose to kill themselves. And this girl, she hung herself in a shallow yard with a jump rope. And luckily for her, and she fell in the bathtub and then her foster parents find out. They took her and took her to a behavioral school where it's like to her, she said that it's like a prison for her because there was a lot of things that she couldn't do. And they took her to that behavioral school for like 4 years. And while she was at that school, her mother was exonerated. And the school teachers and administrators telling her when your mother here come here, don't pay her any mind because she's a criminal and all that. Even after she was exonerated, and she lost her father for that same crime after 2 years. 2 years after she lost her father to the electrical chair, and this is when they find out that the mother was wrongfully convicted, and the father also was, her father and the mother was wrongfully convicted. That means he was wrongfully executed in the electric chair. Okay, so I'm sorry, but I cannot go too much because my time is over. But I will quickly, this is Papo, the guy, I use the pseudonym because I don't want to put the name out there. But he was the 9-year-old boy. Now he's 51 years old, and he's still being treated with PTSD and depression and fear of illness.
That were wrongfully convicted of murders that they did not, of course, commit by use of fraudulent and manufactured evidence. And the suppressing of evidence that would have exonerated them, the prosecutor at the time got them convicted of those crimes, and they were sentenced to death. My mother was later her conviction was commuted to life, but my stepdad was sent to the electric chair. My emotions blew out, the full spectrum, disillusionment, confusion, fear. They took the whole world away from me. I had a sense of safety and security as a child until that point, and after that, I had nothing. I couldn't believe that the courts could convict people of crimes that they didn't commit, and that there was evidence that they didn't commit. I never understood why they never brought me to testify. I was present at the time that the crimes were committed. I knew my mother hadn't done anything. I knew my stepdad had done nothing. They were innocent. My feelings about them being wrongfully convicted, I was first shocked and just horror, and then I was appalled. I just fell into despair and anger. In school, it was a bloody nightmare. Supposedly only the school psychologist and the principal knew about my situation and my parents and me, so that they could look after me. But it seemed everywhere I went, every school I was moved to, everyone knew. Everybody had, it was either arranged between pity, disgust, and not even compassion, pity, disgust, hatred, the opportunity to be sadistic because, well, if your parents are supposed to have been convicted of murder, obviously, you have their genetics, and they feel warranted. They feel that there's nothing wrong with them, physically, mentally, and emotionally torture you. Things. I got bullied. I ended up getting into really bad fights. People would say horrible things to me, and I would get angry and tell them just get out of my.
So as you can see, as an illustration of the impact of the children, the wrongfully convicted. So I think at this point, I want to acknowledge in the program, the first children's bill pertaining to wrongful conviction. It's called Why Can't Uncle Come Home? And the author of it, Christiane Allison, is with us tonight, and I'm going to ask her just a couple of quick questions. Please welcome her. So a few quick questions. So first of all, why did you write this book?
I wrote this book because I watched my niece and nephew go through the experience of wrongful conviction when my husband was wrongfully convicted in 2015. And I saw the severe impact that it was having on them and the questions they had that no one could answer. And I looked for resources for them and they didn't exist. So I decided that was unacceptable. And I wrote a children's book for them.
Why do you believe that this book is helpful or even needed?
There's a lot of questions that children ask that parents don't know how to answer. Usually they're so overwhelmed by their own experience, it's hard for them to put into words for a child how this could happen or what's really happening, or especially simplifying something very complex into a very simple answer. And so this book provides that answer. It also provides them with, more importantly, things that they can do, like sending letters and answering phone calls and that kind of thing, whatever is relevant for them in the situation. Because that's what every adult and every child wants to know, is what they can do in these situations to help. So.
Okay, and our last question is, how can people obtain the book? And just so everyone's clear, this is not a treatise on wrongful conviction. This is a children's book. Okay, just hold it up real quick. Now, this is a children's book. But suddenly the child in the household, they're missing a parent, they're missing an aunt, they're missing an uncle, they're missing a brother, they're missing a sister. There needs to be a way to communicate that. There's a balance. You need to be transparent with the children, but yet their age, it can be hard. So I recommend the book. I've read it. I really like it. How can people obtain the book?
So you can access it through Amazon.com. You can also access it in any format through my website at AllisonPublishing.com. And it's available in hardback, paperback, and the various ebooks. So.
Okay, and you have some with the e-book as well, correct?
Yes, I do. I have some available, and I'm willing to sign books for people. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much for adding to the program. Okay, so I want to, it's important to me that Wrongful Conviction Day remember people that are fighting for freedom, that are left behind, especially those with, whose injustices, whose stories, whose innocence is known to us. And so I want to briefly go over a few of those cases. Here we go. Okay, so the first person there, that's from last year, you may remember, Andrew Krivak, who's been in prison for 18 years. He's the client of the foundation. We screened his case. We connected him with attorney Victor Sipos, who then circled back around and looped back in one of his former lawyers, Adele Bernard, who was used to be a professor here. So really quickly, so he's alleged to have committed the crime with his co-defendant, Anthony DiPippo. One of the bizarre things is Anthony, I'll recognize him in a minute, but Anthony DiPippo is home, he's exonerated, he's listed in the National Registry of exonerations, and he's pursuing compensation. Yet the person who's alleged to have committed the crime with, remains wrongfully imprisoned on exactly the same set of facts. So the case was recently argued in front of the Appellate Division. You can see Anthony here on his page in the National Registry of Exonerations. So he's seeking a new trial based on new evidence. In a nutshell, a mountain of evidence pointing to a serial rapist, Howard Gomberg, who's doing 30 years now in Connecticut for raping a girl. There's a ton of evidence that Andrew never got to present to the jury, which Anthony hadn't been allowed to do so either, but the Court of Appeals reversed Anthony's conviction. He was able to present the evidence to the jury, and he was acquitted. So it seems kind of obvious that the legal question would the new evidence, if known at the time of the trial, probably have resulted in a different verdict. It seems fairly obvious that the answer to that is yes. The other newly discovered evidence question is that the same polygraphist who coerced the false confession out of me, former Putnam County Sheriff's Investigator Daniel Stevens, who I won a civil judgment against, he also applied his evil trade with respect to Andy. So the Appellate Division has recently heard the case. We are waiting for a decision. You can see the supporters that were there. That's from the Examiner News. There's the link if you want to take a picture to read the whole article. We've been talking about the impact of wrongful conviction on the family. So Andy's father is with us tonight, and I'm going to ask him a couple of questions if you'd like to come up for a second. So I'd like you to share just what is a couple of questions, right? So what would the impact on your family be in terms of the wrongful conviction is one thing, and the second thing is just talk about the impact of losing a case. Share with the audience.
Well, in the beginning, when he was first convicted, we didn't have the opportunity to get the type of lawyer that we wanted to get. Everything was kind of pushed fast. So we hired a local lawyer, so we had some form of representation because when they were questioning him for this long period of interrogation, which I believe went beyond 12 and a half hours, they would not allow me to go in to talk to him, to stay with him or any which way. Because he just turned 18 and I wasn't allowed. So I hurried up and got a lawyer. Then after that, when I first talked to him and I said, what's the stuff that's going on and everything else like that, really not knowing told me what happened, just what the cops put out and what we had to go with. There was no any other personal information we could get. And he said, I didn't do it. We had nothing to do with that. And it's like this. Well, meanwhile, as it escalated, it got worse. Judge Bratz, who was the judge at the time over their cases, was very, very biased on one side. The lawyer couldn't present some of the things he wanted to present. And Anthony's lawyer, which was Bob Leader, my belief, what everything transpired between the lawyers, back and forth and stuff like this, neither one got the proper representation that they should have had. A lot of the stuff was never allowed to come out. And he wound up being found guilty with Anthony. And, well, through all this transition, it's tough. Me and his father. Well,
take your time.
Tough to say tough. I tried to hold it together so that the impact on my daughters, the son, we were very, very close friends. Wouldn't show so much of how it was tearing me apart. Every time we go to visit him, we have to walk away with him there. It takes a chunk out of it.
so the next person, we're going to remember another case from last year we covered, John Giuca, who served 14 years to this point. His previous sentence was 25 to life. We see a noted expert on prosecutorial misconduct making a rather strong statement, Professor Gershman. It says what it does, and sure enough, he was correct. John's conviction was most recently overturned on prosecutorial misconduct grounds. The star prosecutor, the prosecutor has a television show, and she boasts of her record of 35-0. The show is called True Conviction. Maybe it would be good if the ID Investigation Discovery heard from us as to what we think about her being on that show. Slideshow here, but basically, long story short, in the Giuca case, it was based on two people who claimed that they overheard John confessing to the crime to a third party. The issue was that neither of their stories made any sense. In fact, from a medical point of view, one of the person's stories couldn't have happened because they claimed to have overheard John speak to his father at a time in which the father had been unable to talk based upon a stroke. So trying to pull their case out the fire, they came with a third informant at the last second and denied that he received any benefits, when actually he got quite a bit of benefits. He should have been returned to prison for any number of parole violations, but that was never disclosed, and the prosecutor aggravated that misconduct by arguing to the jury that he had nothing to benefit, he had nothing to gain, and that actually he was, because he had quite a record, that actually he was trying to do the right thing for once in his life. And actually that was not true, and so the conviction was recently overturned. And so I'm going to ask Doreen just to come up very briefly to share a couple of words with us. And by the way, if people don't know, okay, the newspapers have dubbed Doreen Mother Justice because of the extreme lengths that she went for her son John. So she took on an assumed name. You know, she lost weight. She rented an apartment, and she, in order to speak with one of the jurors, she recorded him admitting that the only reason why he voted guilty is because he thought that John Giuca was actually Jewish, and she caught him on tape saying that. And that really put this case on the map and has it in the position where it is now, where the case has a lot of media attention, and that certainly, I believe, has played quite a bit of role in John getting ultimately getting the reversal on prosecutorial misconduct grounds. So just like you to share, you know, what is the impact on the family, just for you to share with the audience.
Well, as we already know, there's a ripple effect. It destroys family. We've seen it. We've heard it. It tears families apart. Based on, you know, prosecutorial misconduct. Sometimes it starts with the detectives, and it just continues with the prosecutors, the judges, and it, like I said, it just rips your family apart.
And although the conviction is reversed after 14 years, is John free? Where is he now? And just briefly tell us where the case is posture-wise.
Well, John now is in Rikers Island. After serving 14 years in upstate correctional facility, he is still suffering. The prosecutors want to try to get the conviction reinstated. After we proved over and over again he did not get a fair trial, he is an innocent man. It's layer after layer. I have a few minutes with you here now, but I actually need like 6 months to explain to you the layers of corruption. And it's just devastating if you don't have money. Even if you do have money to fight for your son, they take it all. We had the White House with the picket fence. They destroyed my family. I'm a divorce now. I was married for 25 years and my husband just couldn't take it anymore. My son Matthew was 16 years old at the time they took his brother wrongfully. Now, I know that, you know, I'm the mother and people may say, you know, I have rose-colored glasses. But innocence. The proof. When does the facts matter? And what I realized just now with this gentleman up here, we need prosecutors in this audience to see what they are doing to families. They are destroying us. We need judges. I don't know how they sleep at night. Matthew was 16 years old, and he would run away from home because he couldn't bear the pain of losing his brother to life in prison for a crime he could not have possibly done. Matthew, stand up. Matthew, watch him in prison and Rikers Island. It tears him apart to walk away. They are destroying families. We need prosecutors in this audience.
And the judge thus far has refused to grant John bail, which is why he remains in Rikers Island.
I'm watching my son grow old in prison. He went in at 20, he's 35 now.
How much longer?
Okay, so moving on. Yeah, J.J. Velasquez's case was mentioned last year as well. He got 21 years in on 25 to life sentence. In brief, this case features several witnesses recanting an alternative suspect whose name appeared in the original police reports, was identified. That person confessed to several civilian witnesses, and yet the Manhattan DA's office won't let go of the case, and he remains wrongfully in prison now. Maria, you feel up to just coming up for a second? His mother's with us, Maria Velasquez. So maybe you share a little bit the impact on the family as well.
Okay, wrongful conviction has a great impact on the family, especially the children. I'm a single mother. I raised my son by myself, a professional who worked more than 50, 60 hours a week, yet I had to find time to raise my 2 grandchildren who were 2 months old and 3 years old. They know their father because of my weekly visits to prison. I worked like a fiend. I worked during the week, getting home at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I worked Saturdays, I worked Sundays. I was a union organizer. I don't know if many of you know, but union work never ends. It's unending. And I always went every week, me and my children, me carrying a little baby in my arms, and my son seeing his baby grow before him. My youngest grandchild only knows his father because of those visits. My grandson, who's 3 years old, only knows his father because of those visits. I wanted to keep our family together. I wanted a strong family unit where the system was destroying our family. It destroys families, okay? It destroys society. Because a lot of these children, as you said, they themselves grow up and commit crimes, are full of hate, and can't understand why this happened. Okay, my grandson, the oldest one, who's 23 today, at 18 years old, threw himself in my arms in my bed and said, "Grandma, is my father ever going to come home?" So it just tears at everything that a family has. It destroys us, and it's very hard. But today my son is, I guess he's 41. This was 20 years ago. I was in my late 40s. I'm not a young person, but all that I pray for is I want to be there. I want to be there the day that he's free, because he is innocent, and I'll tell you why. He was on the telephone with me for 23 minutes, right at the time that this crime was being committed, and I was made out to be a liar, because I, as a mother, would do anything to cover for my son. And I told the truth, and my son told the truth, but we were not believed because the assistant DA can say whatever they want to say. They can make you out to be a liar. It doesn't matter if you tell the truth.
But you had the proof.
Yes, we had the proof, the telephone conversation, everything, but they wouldn't believe us. Until this day, we go to court and we lose appeal after appeal after appeal. I go into deep depressions. I don't want to see anybody. I don't go outside. But on days like today, I always get up because the fight isn't me. The fight will not die. Just like Jeff, I will not give up. I will always be there with Jeff, I'm sorry, sister, with her, with all of you, whoever stands beside me, we will continue the fight because wrongful conviction in this country must end. This is wrong, it's wrong, and we do need more prosecutors here to hear and to listen because they sleep at night, okay? But there's a lot of people that don't, and I will tell you the truth, I have always slept because in my heart I know my son is innocent. I have never lost a right of sleep. But great. I see an old man before me where he was 20 years old.
Maybe last thing, can you just briefly tell us what position is the case now? Where is he now in terms of challenging his conviction?
The case right now is at its lowest point because the lawyers that we had, they finally, they've been with us for the last, 10, maybe more years, and now we don't have lawyers. We're trying to get more lawyers. Whatever, facts we were able to disclose have been disclosed. Now we need new facts, new information. This takes, detective work. It's so much. It's so much that they put you through, and they want more proof and more proof and more proof. So it's not in a good place right now. But my son continues because he's gotten 2 college degrees in jail, and he runs the college program and the GED program, and right now he's student teaching with the Columbia University professor. So he continues, and as long as he is strong and he continues fighting within, I can live on and be strong for him.
Can you please go to the website? There's a petition that's there at the website. Please sign it because he's up. We don't want to go this route, but if he can get out, he's up on Governor Cuomo's leniency list for this December. So please sign the petition.
That's right,
Go
Governor
there,
Cuomo.
read all about it. If after you read all the facts, you don't find the heart to sign that petition, I don't know.
And listen to Jason Plum's podcast with JJ
Yes,
Black.
this is Jason
Could
Plum.
you read the website, please?
Can you read the website?
The website is www.freejohnadrianvelasquez.org.
Yes.
Okay, so we have Pen John Alexander, was a high-profile fashion designer. I couldn't believe this case. This really takes the case. In Texas, he was charged with 3 counts. They were all dismissed prior to trial. 1 count in Houston, Texas, dismissed. New York City, he was hit with 49 counts. 39 of them were dismissed before trial. Another 9 were dismissed after that. And here's what's really crazy, right? He was forced to plead guilty to 1 count, oral copulation with an adult female, right? Go figure that. In exchange for getting exculpatory material that he needed for his habeas petition in California. And another thing too is that witnesses who were not believed in some jurisdictions were allowed to testify in the Californian case as modus operandi witnesses. I'm going to move ahead a little bit here. In terms of where we position his cases, well, we must mention this too. One of the jurors actually contacted his sister and was trying to, during the trial, and wanted to get paid money in exchange for persuading the other jurors to find him not guilty. The jurors said that they were convinced that he wasn't guilty, but they wanted some money. Obviously, they were not paid off. And efforts to overturn the conviction on that basis have failed to this point. In terms of where the case is now, there's a habeas petition that's pending in California. He also has a commutation package in front of Governor Brown. My foundation put a support letter in that was included in the commutation package, and in order to help this case get more attention, I agreed to serve as a spokesperson on this case. We're going to do a tour nationally and internationally to raise awareness on wrongful conviction and on his case also, so kind of both goals at once. So lastly, we have Michael DeLoe in Pennsylvania. So this is a child, just aggravated indecent assault, corruption of minors, endangering the welfare of children. Okay, his DNA found on the outside of the underwear that did not match him. Really, that should have been ended the case right there. There was a custody issue that was about to emerge, so possible motivation in terms of that. And he wasn't given, if you look at the transcript, again, I didn't believe this until I looked at it, but if you look at the transcript, he was not asked. This does not appear anywhere on the transcript where he was actually offered his opportunity to testify. So that's the ground that's being used to overturn the conviction, because a civil lawyer was errantly hired who had never done a criminal case before, and so they didn't object to anything, so there really is no issues of law to base an appeal on, so this is the best issue that he has to try to get the conviction overturned. And the case is now before the Pennsylvania Superior Court, awaiting decision. Flying in from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Marianne Lubis, who has organized the Freedom March for the Wrongfully Convicted in Pennsylvania for the last several years. Marianne. So in keeping with the theme, just maybe you can speak about impact on the family and then maybe make one other comment.
One thing I'd like to say is when you were talking about the children, a couple years ago, our granddaughter, my daughter that was supposedly, this occurred to, reached out to me. She was 14 at the time, and she had shared with me how twice at the age of 14 she had tried to commit suicide, and that she was a cutter, and she sent me pictures of scars all up and down her arm. She doesn't know if this happened because she has no recollection of it happening. But we tell our children all the time that there's a Santa Claus and there's an Easter Bunny and a Tooth Fairy, and they believe us because we're adults and they believe us. Just like they would believe us if we said, Daddy did this to you for 14 months before trial. The other thing that I would like to add is if anyone has ever had any medical testing that could have been deadly or serious, and that feeling of angst of waiting for those results, is it going to be cancer, is it going to be this, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You have a hard time eating and sleeping and just waiting for those results. That's life every single day for a wrongfully convicted child. Because you never know when they're going to come home or when you're going to be able to get the answer that the appeal is going to prove that the conviction's going to overturn, and you fight and you go to the next one and the next one, but forever in your stomach is that, when is this ever going to end? Thank you.
All that having been said, there is reason for hope. We did get the recent Commission on Prosecutorial Conduct passed in New York. That's going to deter a lot of misconduct, and I think it'll provide a forum for people to go to after the fact. I want to give some hope as well. That's also what Wrongful Conviction Day is about in terms of people who've been exonerated. So maybe, the following people will stand up. So Anthony DiPippo was with us, exonerated after 20 years. Maybe. Okay, the guy in the back who joined us last year, here again, Lorenzo Johnson is here. And if you have a really, really good lawyer You don't necessarily have to be wrongfully convicted. You can actually be acquitted. So motivation for us, if we're going to, here at the school, we're going to be defense lawyers, and I certainly hope that those of us who want to be prosecutors are going to be ethical and play by the rules, and we can avoid things like that. A living example of really great lawyering and is a person who I consider to be the voice of the falsely accused yet acquitted. We don't often think about what happens to them. We just think of the wrongfully convicted people, but actually, they're under a mental strain as well. So H. Bosch Jr. is with us. So maybe just share a quick thing that the
Okay. Greetings, everyone. Okay, let me say something. I traveled over 3.5 hours in pouring rain to get here, all right? So, I want a little energy. I'm going to say it again. Greetings, everyone. I'm having a bad hair day, but I'm here, all right? Okay, so I got 5 words. And first of all, I want to say thank you to Jeff, my good friend. We have did so many remarkable things, and he is a true friend, and as I always say, my brother from another mother. Real quick, I'm going to give you 5 words, okay? Overcoming adversity, specialist, believe it, and hang on the last 2. Now, I'm going to share with you briefly my story and how that applies to me. Okay, in 2005, I owned H. Bosch Moving and Storage in upstate New York. I was the largest minority-owned moving company in upstate New York. I was making $500,000 a year. 12 workers, 3 trucks, life was just cruising right along. In April of 2005, my house caught fire. In a matter of minutes, everything I owned, gone. Now, I'm going to say this. How many of us have had a bad experience with an insurance company or have had a loved one who's had a bad experience with an insurance company? Raise your hand. Because, and if you haven't, keep on living, trust me, you will. Okay, so 2 years later, after spending upwards of $200,000 in my life savings, I was acquitted, okay? Found innocent of all charges. But the trajectory, ladies and gentlemen, changed my life. I was not wrongfully convicted, and nor can I ever relate to these young men right here. But I still went through the criminal justice system, and the trajectory of my life was changed forever, which led me to do something. Instead of laying down and giving up or taking what little bit I had and cherishing my freedom and walking away, I decided to fight. I decided to make a difference by being a difference. I got connected with Jeff. I got connected with other organizations because I knew it was too late to change what happened to me, but I didn't want what happened to me to happen to your son, your daughter, or your uncle, your father. I wanted them to have a place to go, to have some type of regulating body that they could appeal to when they were wrongfully convicted or wrongfully prosecuted. So 6 years later, and countless hours at the New York State Capitol with my good friend Jeff, we passed the law.
Yeah.
And the commissioner, now, let me share this with you. I was not the only person, but I helped spearhead that. I'm a small part of something big. And I end by saying I am a motivational speaker, I'm a radio personality, and I'm an entrepreneur. But most important, today I'm here as an advocate, a servant of justice, all right? To say that you can change the system, all right? Don't give up, stand up and fight. So I'm going to end, all right, by saying, when I finish, I'm going to count to 3, and I want you to say the last 2 words in that 5-word sentence I gave you, all right? We all remember what it was, right? Huh? We would remember? Yeah. So stand up, and I want you to hold hands. And then I'm going to say it. Stand up, I want you to hold hands to the person next
next to you. And when I count to 3, I want you to say it like you mean it, and I want you to say it like you feel it. 1, 2, 3. Believe, believe. That's right. God bless you, man. I'm going to continue this long time.
So by the way, the insurance aspect to the story is that it was the insurance company that pushed the district attorney to bring charges against H. Boss Jr. in the first place after the police had previously determined that, number one, that there was no evidence that he started the fire, or even that there was any arson in the first place. That's the connection with the insurance bit. So at this time, I'm going to turn the program back over to Dr. Kapur.
Jeff knows my radio station. Anybody who wants to listen, reach out to Jeff. I come on every Thursday.
What channel? What channel?
No, Jeff can do that. He'll do that.
Dr. Kapur.
All right, so at this point I would like to introduce Professor Bennett Gershman. Professor Gershman is a professor here at the Elisabeth Haub School at Pace. He's a former prosecutor with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, where he worked for 6 years. He also served for 4 years as a special state prosecutor and is investigating corruption in the judicial system. He's active on several bar associate committees and a frequent pro bono litigator. Professor Gershman is one of the country's leading experts on prosecutorial misconduct and is a frequent media commentator as well. He is the author of 2 books on prosecutorial misconduct and numerous articles as well. Professor Gershman is a member of the coalition group It Can Happen to You, where Jeff serves as an advisory member as well, which spearheaded the recent passage of the country's first commission on prosecutorial conduct. Professor Gershman.
Thank you for joining all of us in honoring my friend and my student, Jeffrey Deskovic. I can't really think of anybody else I know who has shown the courage and heroism that Jeff has shown. He's an inspiration. He's an inspiration, obviously, to all of us, and to me especially. Thank you for being here. A long time ago, longer than I like to remember, I started writing a book about prosecutors. And I wanted to, given my experience, I wanted to try to organize the different kinds of ways that prosecutors operate the law. And then the book got written, and some people read it. But you know, a long time ago, when I wrote the book about prosecutors, I really wasn't thinking of the issue of wrongful convictions. As a prosecutor, I got up and made a motion to have a case dismissed against a young man who was charged with a robbery. I investigated the case. I concluded that there wasn't enough evidence that would allow me to go to trial. And what's funny is, when I made the motion to the judge was very, very upset at my motion. And I had to convince the judge that, in my judgment, there was no case. But you see, and the case actually made the newspapers. It was a headline that a case was being dismissed because the prosecution felt that the person was not provably guilty. But what I'm thinking is, back then, and this is a long time ago, the idea of wrongful convictions really hasn't resonated with people. Many judges didn't believe that anybody who was convicted wrongfully, that he was innocent, she was innocent. I was on a panel show with prosecutors many years ago, And all of these prosecutors, we don't convict innocent people. And how do you change that mindset? We didn't have the registry of exonerations, which we do today. Today, 30 or so years later, the registry shows that over 3,000 people have been officially exonerated. And I get letters every day from inmates around the country. To me, there must be thousands and thousands and thousands of other persons who are incarcerated around the country who are innocent. Now, we can't prove it. We don't have DNA evidence for those persons, and they don't have proof that would support habeas corpus petition or something. But that's got to be the case if you extrapolate from the number of persons who are officially exonerated. And I just want to Jeffrey Foundation, which is just a remarkable achievement, this young man, does what many, many other organizations are doing around the country. It really is just a drop in the bucket. I mean, we don't have the resources to represent the thousands and thousands of people who probably are innocent, who are spending perhaps their life in jail with the impact on their families that we've seen. I think that what really kind of galvanized me on thinking about innocence and wrongful convictions was a movie I saw about 25 years ago. I don't know if any of you or many of you saw the film. This was at a time when we really weren't that familiar with innocence and wrongful convictions. When I went into the theater to see it, because I heard a little bit about it, I didn't know that at the time I was watching this film, Jeffrey had recently been convicted and was residing incarcerated in a state prison in New York. I didn't know that. I didn't know it for many, many years later. But when I saw this film, I will say it was probably the most shattering experience I think I've had professionally. The film was titled The Thin Blue Line. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest maybe you go and see it. Because when I went to the theater, I didn't know what to expect. It was a film directed by a documentarian by the name of Errol Morris. And it was about a man named Randall Dale Allen, who was convicted of murdering a police officer in Dallas, Texas. And he was sentenced to die in the state's electric chair. And actually, he was 3 days away from being electrocuted before some evidence came up that stayed the execution. I remember one line in the film that always never forget. There was a lawyer in Dallas, Texas, who said, the prosecutors in Dallas County for years have said that any prosecutor can convict a guilty man, but it takes a great prosecutor to convict an innocent man. I read an article about this film, and that was the way I began the article that quote. And then you see this incredible film. You'll see how prosecutors can operate to convict an innocent man. The prosecutor in this case was one of the legendary prosecutors in Dallas, Texas, Douglas Mulder. And as they're introducing him, you see the list of the 40 cases that he convicted men of murder and sent them to the state's electric chair. And Mulder was one of the supposedly one of the greatest prosecutors in the state, maybe in the country. But as you saw the case, you realized that Mulder didn't want to prosecute a man named David Harris because David Harris was a juvenile. And David Harris could not get the death penalty. Randall Dale Adams could. And David Harris testified for the prosecution and as a cooperating witness. And when you see the interviews of David Harris, you sort of have a feeling that he's hiding something. There was a killing of a police officer, and you have a montage of kind of how the shooting happened. And David Harris that's the man who I saw kill the police officer. I'll never forget, she pointed at him. And I think all of you can imagine that kind of impact on a jury. The only problem is Emily was wild. She picked out somebody else in the lineup. This is something the jury didn't know until a police officer told her where Adams was standing in the lineup. Emily had a problem with the authorities. She was arrested for some kind of crime. Her daughter was charged with robbery. These charges were dismissed after Emily testified. And what struck me about the film more than anything else is how our adversary system, our court system, our trial system really doesn't work. Because you can imagine Mulder questioning David Harris, questioning David Harris, and the jury, back and forth. The filmmaker interviewed Emily Harris, and he interviewed David Harris, Emily Rand. And if you saw the interview, you know for certain that this woman was lying. She could not make an identification. And she explained how, well, it was dark, and maybe I saw, maybe I didn't. And this is the way the filmmaker was questioning her. What struck me is that the filmmaker got to the truth. The trial jury didn't. And we know that because we know that Mulder, after this case was over, Adams filed a writ in his corpus, showed that Mulder hid significant evidence that was exculpatory in Randall Adams. Evidence about Emily, evidence about David Harris, proof that David Harris was actually the killer. And in fact, at the end of the film, one of those eerie scenes I think I can ever remember, David Harris virtually admits that he killed the officer and that he was putting the weight on Randall Adams because Randall Adams didn't give him a ride. It was just a remarkable story. And I think when I came out of that film, I think I was just stunned. I started writing to Randall Adams, and we corresponded. As I said, the judge granted his writ. He was free, he was released. He then, after he was released, tried to do some of the work that Jeffrey was doing. Randall was very ill, he was very ill for years in jail. And I guess one of the things I was thinking of as we were, hearing the stories of hearing, I think prosecutors, they don't generally, they don't really struggle with cases. That's, to me, there were prosecutors and there were good prosecutors. And, prosecutors take the cases, prosecute the cases, the good prosecutors. And there are good prosecutors. The good prosecutors think about whether the defendant might be innocent. They do think they test their hypothesis. They go over the case. They go over the evidence. They have an attitude of some skepticism before they're convinced to themselves that the case is strong enough to prosecute. The good prosecutors do that. You're never going to see a good prosecutor do what this prosecutor did to John Giuca. That was something that she should be disbarred for what she did in the television court on the way. She's a TV personality. But prosecutors have to look at their cases strictly and look, my sense is that if I felt morally confident that they try to know what the right thing is to do, and they don't cross that line that separates violations from ethical, proper conduct. And I also think about, thank God, when Jeffrey was convicted, thank God, New York State had abolished the death penalty. do a post-mortem on those persons who may have been, can you imagine that wrongful conviction? I think we know of only one case, I think Willingham. But to me, that's something that, they say, we're just too busy, we don't have enough resources to look back. But that's got to be the case. And who knows? Who knows what will happen? So we have a commission now signed into law that's going to watch over prosecutors and make sure that prosecutors take the line. In the same way that we have a commission that watches judges, make sure that judges take the line. We know, thousands of judges have been punished since this judicial commission was established 30 some years ago. And my sense is now there is a vehicle that will investigate prosecutors. I think it's a good thing I think prosecutors should applaud this commission because, as a good prosecutor, I don't want bad prosecutors operating because they give me a bad name. They taint the whole system. So I would think that prosecutors should applaud this commission. They're not, in fact, they're challenging it. I think they're really making a big mistake by not endorsing this type. Because up until, and this is a problem all over the country, prosecutors do not get disciplined, whether it's politics, whether it's lack of resources, whether it's fear. I don't know what the reason is, but it's just that just happens to be the state of professional discipline. Private lawyers get disciplined sometimes, prosecutors probably get disciplined. And so, I just want to say again, thank you for participating in this wrongful conviction event. Thank you for honoring this incredible young man. I just hope that the future will make some of the things that we talked about today, maybe we'll have justice. Maybe all of the things that we talked about, not trusting the system, we'll believe, and maybe our beliefs will bear fruit.
I'd like to introduce now Sundhe Moses. Sundhe was exonerated after 18 years in prison for a murder he did not commit. He's one of the 13 people that were framed by the disgraced former Brooklyn detective Louis Scarcella, and all of whom have now been exonerated.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here. My name is Sundhe Moses. Let me spell it for you because it's been butchered throughout the years, right? Even the system we're talking about butchered it, right? So it's S-U-N-D-H-E. It's a West African name. My parents are from West Africa, from Liberia. I served 18 and a half years for a crime that I did not commit. Not only that I did not commit, but totally, and I don't know how to say totally innocent. Innocent is innocent, right? But there are degrees of it, right? In a case where two teens may be at a party, innocent, and one of the teens that you're with committed a crime, you're there, you didn't do anything, but the person that you're with did, right? And so you may be convicted for being there, although you didn't do anything. But in my case, I wasn't there. I wasn't even there. I didn't know the people. They were strangers to me, I was strangers to them. And I never thought that, at the time, I thought that if a person was wrongfully convicted, it was because at least they were there. At least. I didn't think that you could just make up a ghost story on anybody and say anybody know him. Okay, let's convict him. I didn't think that can happen. Not in this country, not in one of the greatest cities in this country. you know, I was 19 years old when this happened. A little bit about where I was at. My parents, of course, like I said, from West Africa, they were very strict. I come from a large family. I'm the youngest of 8. And so it affected my family very deeply. They have, you know, deep reservations and deep convictions and high morals. They try to teach the right thing and impart the right things, messages to me. Although we lived in Brooklyn, in a rough neighborhood, you know, immigrants from Liberia, you know, they're trying to make it. They have a bunch of kids. And so at 19 years old, graduated from Catholic school. I went to Catholic school and then went on to high school and graduated. And then at 17 years old, went to college. So the Borough of Manhattan Community College. And you know, although I was doing that, I was a lost kid. I really didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, I just went through the motions. Let me go to school because I knew that that was the right thing to do. So a crime took place back in 1995. There was an award show that was held for the first time in New York City by a hip-hop publication called The Source Magazine. They held an award show in Manhattan. And the first one, this publication, it was their first award show. They decided to hold it in New York. At this award show, there were guys there affiliated with Notorious B.I.G. There was a crime that happened there where a guy was robbed for a Rolex watch and some jewelry. And how did this connect to me? There was a detective by the name of Scarcella who was put on the investigation to investigate the crime. So in 1995, around election time, because this guy got robbed at the award show, there was a rash of shootings after. In one of these shootings, a 4-year-old girl was murdered by the name of Shimon Johnson, and 4 other people were wounded. And so there was a lot of pressure to close this case, being that it's an election time, it's 1995, 4-year-old girl is killed. And so in any situation, doesn't matter, in any situation, innocent or guilty, a 4-year-old girl being killed is a tragedy. And so one thing about wrongful convictions is that the people who are responsible for it knows what buttons to press. And so because a 4-year-old girl got killed, experienced detectives such as Louis Scarcella knows that he can go to a grieving family because the family wants justice. And the uniform and the badge represents integrity, right? So if I knock on your door as a civilian or a regular guy, a stranger, you wouldn't open it. You would say, who are you here to see? And I would say, just open your door, just let me in. You wouldn't open it. But as a detective, you wouldn't have to know the detective personally because his badge and his uniform represents or supposed to represent something. So you open your door because you trust that person. And that's what grieving families do as well. So if a detective comes to a family where a 4-year-old girl was murdered and say, listen, here's the guy. All we need to do is to have you say that that's him. A lot of people, after they discovered in my case, would do that, right? Because they trust the detective. Not that they think that the detective is lying, but they think that although, even if they didn't see it themselves, if a detective saying that this is the person, right? And me trusting that detective's word, almost 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, that person would go along with that. And that's what happened in my case, where the family of Shimon Johnson, the 4-year-old girl, her family went along with it. It was only almost 20 years later, 18 years later, and then 20 years later, where the guy, the cousin of the victim, who was actually there, who testified against me, But he was a kid, and I was a kid. And as he got older throughout the years, I always felt in my heart, I always said to myself, if I was able to locate these witnesses, I think they would say something different. But where am I going to find them at, right? I don't have money. My parents exhausted all their money. I have 4 private detectives. 4 private attorneys. Almost $80,000 just went down the drain. I gave one lawyer $10,000. He put in a motion for an extension of time. That was it. $10,000 gone, just like that. And so, not to mention I had a newborn son when I was arrested. And so, the experience that you talked about and this dad right here is really heartfelt. The illustration that you put about understand completely. Right now, I'm trying to build a relationship with my son. My son was only a couple of months old when I got locked up. He wasn't talking, walking, anything. And he only knows me through prison. Right now, thank God, I don't know how. I really don't know how but to say, God and people around me. I always say that I had a guardian angel in prison because it protected him. My son's mother was in the military. When I got arrested, she was lost. She's a young mother, I'm a young father. Right? Her family is not as close-knit as mine. She didn't know what to do. Right? So she said, I'm gonna go into the military, the next best option that, a lot of poor people go for. She did, and she became successful. She stayed there, she just retired after 20 years. And so my son did not have a mother or father in his life on a day-to-day basis because she was in the military and I was in prison. And she didn't want to shuffle him all around the world. At one point he was living in Germany, he was living in Virginia on a base, he was living here, and I was concerned, being in prison, how that would affect him. But again, some positive things happened. He had his hiccups. He's now in the military and has been in for the last 3 years, and he's able to do good. But that's one of the success stories. We're still trying to build a relationship. I'm still trying to communicate with him. My mother, she had a stroke. My father had a stroke. Neither one of them are well. I'm glad that they're alive because I was looking at not ever coming back home. And not just because it was a lengthy period of time, but there's a few things that we don't look at being wrongfully convicted. One is, like Jeff, even in prison, amongst some of the worst people that you can find, even amongst that, there is a hierarchy of crimes that are looked down upon among other criminals, right? Rape is never looked at as something being good. We had to go through certain things. Killing a little girl is not ever looked at as something being good by anybody. And so but we're wrongfully convicted, and so that's something that we had to go through. My crime was on TV, so as I'm coming out the precinct, there's a crowd of people standing in front of the precinct saying, you should die, you should burn in hell. You shot a 4-year-old girl. It took me 3 weeks to pick a jury. That's a long time. People pick a jury in 2-3 days, right? It took weeks. Nobody wanted to sit on the jury because they felt like, I want to convict him. I have kids. So, 2 years sitting on Rikers Island, only to be convicted. The judge, I think, in my case, who's now an appellate court judge, but I think that she was convinced, because out of a lot of the people, she gave me the minimum sentence. She could have gave me the max, but she gave me the minimum. And you ask, judges speak through their sentence. If a judge feels that you're guilty, or if the judge feels that you're more blameworthy, then the judge gives you the max. Less blameworthy or innocent, the judge gives you less. So the judge gave you the minimum. Miss Priscilla Hall, right? And so many misconceptions. As a black man, right, I didn't think, you know, they always say, oh, you know, white guys doing it. You know, to be frank, to be honest, I say, listen, the system is run by, you know, my whole courtroom was black. The district attorney was black, the judge was black, my lawyer was black, right? And so the misconceptions, the views that you can get from wrongful convictions, as you can see, it goes across the board. Old, young, women, men, young. You know, it doesn't matter, right? And we need to recognize that as a community. Mr. Bennett said that wrongful convictions aren't talked about as much, and it isn't. I went and met with the mayor's office. A lot of focus is focused on lowering crime, not necessarily wrongful convictions. And so I think that having a law passed where there's some accountability, that's one of the biggest problems that we have. And it's just not enough. And so I think that if no accountability is given in the system, then things like this will continue to happen, right? We'll be having the same conversation 20 years later. In fact, you know, I wrote so many people, and it was like deaf ears. Pace Law University, where I'm speaking at today, their law clinic took my case. His foundation took my case. I wrote his foundation. Didn't know Jeff, just looking, and somebody said, write his foundation. He actually wrote back and actually took the case. I don't know if you know that, Jeff, but he actually wrote back and took the case. But at the same time when he did that, I actually had a lawyer that took the case by the name of Ronald Kirvak. And he's been my attorney ever since, and he's done a great job. Him and Jeff are good friends. I would like to thank everybody here for listening and opening their ears. January of this year, it took 4.5 years for me to be exonerated. And you ask yourself, why so long? It took 2 years to convict me. And it took 4.5 for them to find evidence. What I've came to realize is that, and this is what we're fighting against, in any realm, in any profession, usually when you hear about wrongful convictions, right, the police commissioner or the mayor or the governor or somebody would say, to excuse the things that happen, they would say, only a few bad apples. But that's not true, right? What all of our parents told us about friends, right? They said, listen, our parents don't ever tell us that every friend you meet is going to be your friend, right? Your parents say, listen, your friends, you're only going to meet 1 or 2 good in your life. You know, they give you these warnings about friends, right? And it's the same thing in profession, right? I like to point out the Adele Bernard case. When I was coming up, when you see the corrupt detective O'Connor, right, on TV, he would say, hey, Tommy, let's take him down to the lake, or let's take him to the back alley. But they would never say, let's take him to the precinct. Why? Because they were trying to hide their misdeeds from people who would correct them. But in this case, they did it inside the precinct. So you ask yourself, what would make 3 or 4 detectives feel comfortable to go to their place of occupation and do what they did? And then was this an empty precinct? I never went to an empty precinct. So where were the other cops and detectives? Where was the front desk guy? Where were everybody at? And so what that said to me was, most of the people that were there were implicit in what happened, even if it was by their silence. So where were all the good apples there? Where were all the people that we say, oh, they're fighting there? I mean, you know. And so I say to myself that we have a few good people, we have a few good prosecutors, we have a few good lawyers, we have a few good doctors, firemen, priests, right? Most people, even the Bible, if you believe in it, teaches you that most people that you're gonna come across in your lifetime don't mean you well. That's everywhere. Right? And so we guard against that and we come up with things about that. But I got exonerated finally after 4.5 years in January. After the cousin of the victim came to court, and he now testifies and say, I'm not. He didn't make any mishaps. He said why he lied. Daddy lied. He apologized. He wrote a letter to the parole board for me. I wasn't exonerated immediately. I was released by the parole board because the parole board believed that I was innocent. But the parole board is not the court, but they're just the parole board. So they left me out. 4 years I was on. For 4 years I was on parole. 4.5 years I was on parole. Before it went before a judge, and the judge got to hear the evidence. And they really wanted to throw my case out, to be honest with you. The district attorney's office, right? And I was willing to do almost everything. Like, take DNA from me. I mean, let's take a lie detector test. Anything. Like, I was laying down to them, and for 4 years, the only thing they couldn't get around was the fact that I testified at my own trial. And at my trial, before anybody knew about Detective Scarcella, I said Detective Scarcella assaulted me in the precinct. And so no one can ever get around that. Even the judge today, that was one of her main factors. She said, well, we didn't know about Scarcella until about 15 years later. So there was no way that this kid who knew nothing about Scarcella could have mentioned his name at trial as the sole detective who did these things, and then, 18 years later it comes out to be true. And so that was one of the things that why the conviction review unit could not throw my case out, because they could not explain that. And when it went before a judge, the judge felt like with the evidence of the kid coming forth and saying that he lied, the new evidence of Detective Scarcella, and the 12 convictions that was overturned before mine, I was the 13th person, the evidence was overwhelming. And so the case was thrown out. Right now, I still have a civil suit pending, and I'm doing a lot of things like this and supporting other people. And I just appreciate everybody giving their ear here. I do. Thank you.
So now I'd like to introduce John Bunn, who was also framed by Louis Scarcella and later exonerated. John was only 14 years old when he was wrongfully convicted. He served 17 years in prison and 10 years on parole prior to being exonerated. He has started the organization A Voice for the Unheard, which provides books to prisoners, seeks to change prison culture, educates the community, diverts at-risk youth from prison, and does outreach both to those incarcerated as well as those who are free in the community and who feel unheard and underrepresented by society. John.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I came to support my good friend Jeff. We was upstate together at one point. So when I reach platforms like such, it's just a privilege for me to be amongst y'all. And the work that he's doing is amazing. Like for guys like for us where we come from to be, we have certain kind of like big dreams to do certain things and things that we always want to do. So when we get in a position to do such, it takes a certain part of us that when we do it do something for our spirit, because this is some of the stuff that we always want to do. So when I see Jeff, fighting for guys like myself and himself, that that's big to me. That gives me a big motivation in doing what I'm doing myself. And he asked me to speak a little bit about my story, but I don't feel like this today is about me. I have a real big story because it's being followed big into the media right now. So it's like I done became the face of wrongful convictions to a certain degree. So with that said, It's not to like outshine these guys. It's for me to stand up in the forefront because I feel like I have responsibility. I feel like I have responsibility to the families like you. I know your son. Me and him, friends actually. I didn't know you was his father, but I know your son. And through my experience, this happened to me when I was a kid. I was illiterate. I was 14 years old. I couldn't read. So, like, I was just thinking, like, you know, just about me being innocent, it was going to work for me, but it didn't work out that way. I sat for 16 months to wait to go to trial for a one-day trial, and law books is unheard of. It's not another case like mine. I was railroaded. And I just think that in my situation, it went all so bad, and so many people did so much wrong, they figured that, you know, they'd rather let me go down than mess up other people's careers. So it was like, at some point when the red flags got waved, it was like, well, this is a young kid coming from poverty, and it don't got nothing to do with being black or white. This can happen to anybody in any ethnic background. That's why when I speak on these platforms in front of the media, I let them know that this can happen to anybody. And that's why I represent the wrongful conviction and families like myself, because this can happen to anybody. This is not a black or white thing. This is come when the politics come involved into the situation, and they don't want to fix it. And they can know that we're innocent. They can know that a lot of things wrong, and they still won't fix it because there's politics involved. My case took a certain light into the media where it helped shed light on guys like such, because my brother right here, because it was a reporter that came to me at one particular point. I was already out on parole. I had been like 17 years, and I got released because another inmate tried to rape a female while I was teaching ART upstate in Elmira Correctional Facility. That's why I met Jeff when I was teaching ART. ART was a program, it's an annual regression training program that it brought me back to humanity. I lost myself in prison. I became a part of the environment, the animalistic, the prison mentality, and it became a defense mechanism for me. And by me not knowing how to read and going into a foreign environment, I felt like me becoming bitter, angry, and aggressive was my defense mechanism. By me learning the program, it brought me back to humanity. But I was angry. I was actually became one of the best facilitators in the state. I mean, like literally one of the best. Other guys how to facilitate and helping them get the information on how to get out and what the thing they need to do to actually stay out once they get out. But I never took in consideration that I was ever going to be released. While I was up there facilitating, another inmate attempted to assault and rape the staff lady that was supervising me at the time, and that's what led me to being eventually paroled. I was released on parole, still considered a murderer and everything, and I was on parole for like the next 10 years fighting. Like, I came home to my mother still living in the same apartment. I came home to a poverty situation. I came home, and after about 6 months of this, me being this happy that the fact I was home, I realized that I was still considered a murderer, that I wasn't free, and that I fell into a form of depression. And it was an uphill battle for me at them times. In my case, they threw away the evidence that could prove me innocent before I even got a chance to put in my initial appeal. So when I say they railroaded me, they locked me away and threw away the key, that's what happened to me. There wasn't no way out. They only let me out because of what happened, and they felt like I deserved it because a lot of people in the administration of the facility came to bat for me, and they granted me parole. It took me another 10 years to get fully exonerated, what happened a couple of months ago, but it was a unique situation because it was a reporter from the New York Times that came in to visit me at one particular point. Her name was Miss Frances Robles, and she told me she had been investigating Louis Garcella and that she had discovered a lot of different cases that he was involved in, and in particular, I was the youngest guy that he had ever dealt with, that he had did this to, and that she wanted to highlight, my cases. She wanted to go over the facts, and she had proof of my innocence. She actually did an investigation that was able to break through change that a lot of these innocent programs that wasn't able to do it. So that's why, like, the media kind of plays a big part into this wrongful conviction thing that we got going on. So we got to use it to our advantage because it needs to be highlighted, and that's why I try to step out there in the forefront because I realized that they got a gravitation towards me for some reason. And she put out the article, and once she put out the article in the New York Times, that's what led me to get back into court. When she put out the article, it actually allowed us to get back in court, allowed us to get back into our hearings. My case was the first case that actually was Louis Scarcella, the rogue detective, in my case that's involved in like 50 other wrongful convictions of, flag cases that they was investigating. This is the first time that he was actually put on the stand. And with my lawyer, Glenn Garber, I'm represented by the Exoneration Initiative. When he got him on the stand, I called my lawyer, boss man. This was the first time I felt like I ever really had a voice. When I went through my process, I didn't have a lawyer to defend me. My lawyer was suffering from dementia. I went to trial. When I got to court, it was like a straight fixed fight. Like it's like I went into court and everybody, all the pieces that was set in place was all set components. It was like, my trial was actually like a day or two before Thanksgiving in 1992. The judge ordered the panelists to let them know that they have a decision by the end of the day that they were going to sit in chambers through the holidays. By the end of that day, I picked my jury and was found guilty within 24 hours. Only thing I really remember about the testimony of that day, there was no physical evidence in my case, was that when we was leaving the first time, that me and my co-defendant was put in parallel cells because it was like no other inmates or no other prisoners was in the court when we was found guilty that night. And they put us in cells parallel to each other. And he took a visit belt and he asked me that I wanted to kill myself. And I told him I didn't want to die, that I wanted to live, I wanted to fight, I wanted to prove my innocence. And ever since then, that's what my life has been dedicated to. And ever since I've been vacated, I started an organization called The Voice for Unheard for us. That's the reason why I named my organization The Voice for Unheard, because I felt like I was always yelling for help, but I didn't know how to help, and I never had a voice. So I want to give families like yourself voices and platforms to basically say what's going on and have somebody to go to. Because it ain't just about us getting out here and everybody about what type of money we gonna get and this and that. It's about what we do with the opportunity. Because if we get a blessing, we want it a million. If we get a blessing and we don't hold it and do something with it, then it don't mean nothing to us. It's about trying to bring something back. So if I can be the one that had to go through my situation and to help others, then that's the way to be. I don't sit here and cry for, like, this is my spirit. This ain't out of sympathy. I feel like I'm a warrior. I know I'm strong. Any of these guys that know me, I just want to say that we got to keep fighting. And you got somebody, y'all got a warrior in front of y'all that's going to fight never late. Y'all here, y'all call me, I'm going to take my mouth. I'm going to go, so I ain't got more life for me. But I heard it here.
Back to the podium.
So I'm going to be brief. Basically, I was arrested in Peekskill here in Westchester County. I was 16 years old. I was arrested for a murder and rape, which I did not commit. DNA, my arrest was based on a coerced false confession. So it was about 6 weeks. The police played this cat and mouse game with me, in which half the time they would talk to me as a suspect, and the other half the time they would pretend like they needed my help to solve the crime. They would say things like, well, the kids won't talk freely around us, but they will around you. Stop in from time to time. Let us know if you hear any rumors. They would ask me opinion questions and congratulate me on my opinions being correct. He made me feel important. He made me feel the center of attention. They played the game good cop, bad cop, in which one officer takes on a more aggressive role, whereas his partner pretends to be a friend and opposed to what's going on. We get somehow powerless to intervene. Came from a single-parent household, and so my dad was never involved in my life in any capacity. I never actually saw him growing up, and so that directly intersected with the good cop, bad cop technique, because I began to look up to the officer who was pretending to be my friend. So after doing this routine with me for about 6 weeks, they eventually got me to agree to take a polygraph test, telling me that some new information had come in and they wanted to share that with me, and that would enable me to be more helpful to them. But before they could share that, I would have to take and pass a polygraph. So help us to help you to help us type of logic. So the next day, rather than go to school, I instead went to the police station, where I believed that the polygraph was going to take place at, because other people had been polygraphed at the Peekskill police station per the rumor mill. Because it was a school day, neither my mother nor my grandmother with whom I lived, they didn't call around looking for me. They thought that nothing was wrong. As far as they were concerned, I was in school. But instead of giving me the polygraph there at the police station, they drove me across county lines about 40 minutes away to the town of Brewster, which was in Putnam County. I was given a 4-page brochure to read about how the polygraph worked, and it had a lot of big words in it, and I didn't understand what the words meant, but I quickly dispensed with my own concern by just thinking, well, what difference does it make? I'm here to help the police pass this polygraph, and, you know, half of my interviews with them in that 6 weeks, I mean, half the time they talk to me as a suspect, and the other half, you know, this friend routine. So, you know, I was thinking, well, finally we can get past them occasionally talking to me as a suspect, and we can just get on with me helping them. So I didn't care that I didn't understand the words. I didn't have an attorney present. I wasn't given anything to eat the entire time that I was there. So they put me in a small room, and the polygrapher gave me countless cups of coffee, which seems fairly clear in hindsight that the purpose of the coffee was to get me nervous. And after that, he strapped me into this polygraph machine, and he then launched into his third-degree tactics. So he raised his voice at me, he invaded my personal space, he kept asking me the same questions over and over again. He was getting more and more ferocious as each hour passed. So as the time passed, my fear increased in proportion to the time. He kept that routine up for 6.5 to 7 hours. At the end, he said to me, I guess he was exasperated at that point by his inability to get me to confess. He said to me, what do you mean you didn't do it? You just told me through the polygraph test result that you did. We just want you to verbally confirm it. So when he said that to me, that really shot my fear through the roof. And at that point, the officer who had been pretending to be my friend, he came in the room and he told me that the other officers were going to harm me, that he'd been holding them off, but couldn't do so any longer. That you have to help yourself here, you understand. Well, considering that I maintained my innocence for that previous 6.5 to 7 hours, it was fairly clear what he meant by that. They wanted me to confess. When it was added that if I said as they wanted, that not only would they stop what they were doing, but that I could go home afterwards, that I was not going to be arrested. Being young, naive, frightened, 16 years old, not thinking about the long-term implications. I was only concerned with my own safety in the moment. I was in fear of my life. I mean, the fact that I didn't know where I was and that nobody else knew where I was either, that loomed very large in my mind. And I was overwhelmed emotionally and psychologically, and then there was the push-pull dynamic, because on one hand, he's introduced the possibility of harm, but then on the other, he's thrown me this false life preserver. So I wanted to just get out of there, and I desperately held on to that lie that he gave me, and I made up a story based on the information they had given me that day in the 6 weeks run up to that. But I spoke faster than what I could make the story up, and I wound up collapsing on the floor into a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. Needless to say, I was arrested. I was charged with a murder and a rape. Before I went to trial, the DNA test came in from the FBI lab, which showed that the semen found in the victim didn't match. But the prosecutor got the medical examiner to commit fraud. So 6 months after doing the initial autopsy and hundreds of autopsies later, this medical examiner suddenly remembers that there was medical evidence that he forgot to document, which showed that the victim was a 15-year-old immigrant from Colombia who had been living a very sheltered life. She never went outside, but she wasn't accompanied by her parents or older sister. This medical examiner claimed he found medical evidence showing that she had been sexually active. So basically, in order to wrongfully convict me, the prosecutor was willing to have the medical examiner say that she was sleeping around just about everybody. Taking his lie a step further, he claimed that he named another youth by name, that he claimed it had sex with the victim, but it was an unsupported argument. It was a legally improper argument because he never said at the foundation. He never had a DNA test performed on this other youth. He didn't even call him as a witness to give verbal testimony to that effect. He just made the unsupported argument to the jury. My public defender basically didn't defend me. He never interviewed or called as a witness my alibi. I was actually playing wiffle ball when the crime happened. He never explained to the jury the significance of the DNA not matching me. He never used that to argue that this so-called confession was coerced and false. He rarely met with me. Whenever he did meet with me and I tried to tell him what happened in the interrogation room, he was always shutting me up. He told me at one point he didn't care if I was guilty or innocent. When it was time to cross-examine this medical examiner whose fraud was playing such a major role in the trial, he stood up and with a big smile on his face. He and the medical examiner were great friends from back in the day. He said to him, "You're going to be pleased to know that I don't have a single question for you." My lawyer should have never represented me in the first place because of a conflict of interest, and that this other youth that the prosecution was falsely claiming had sex with the victim was represented not only by another member of Legal Aid Society of Westchester, but also specifically the lawyer who was supervising the lawyer on my case. So that conflict prevented the defense from calling this other youth as a witness, from the defense from asking for a DNA sample. Adding everything all up, I was wrongfully convicted. I was given a 15 to life sentence, which I was sent to a men's maximum security prison because I had been charged as an adult. The trial judge actually told me on the record, in response to my begging him to overturn the verdict, because I'm innocent because of my innocence and referencing the DNA, he said to me, "Maybe you are innocent." You might think that that would have caused him to step up for justice and overturn the conviction, which he could have done by reversing any number of the rulings he had made against me in the course of the trial. But it was more easy and politically expedient to just sentence me and be done with it. So ultimately, I lost 7 appeals. I naively thought that the court system got better the higher up we went. I remember the court, the appellate division ruled that there was overwhelming evidence of guilt, even though the DNA didn't match me, and the only evidence was this confession obtained under highly questionable circumstances. They ruled that the interrogation was voluntary, that even though I was 16 and I didn't know where I was, I had no independent way of escape. They ruled that I was not in custody, that I was free to come and go as I wanted. And they dispensed with my other 8 issues of law. They dispensed with that in one sentence by saying that they had examined my remaining contentions and found them either to be without merit or not preserved for review. And believe it or not, as bad as that decision was, that was the most I ever got a court to write. They denied my re-argument motion. The Court of Appeals declined to give me permission to appeal to them. I lost in federal court because the court clerk gave my lawyer the wrong information pertaining to the filing procedure. And so my habeas corpus petition arrived 4 days too late, which the former district attorney of Westchester, Janine Pirro, her office argued that those 4 days were more important than the issues I was raising. And she got the court to adopt that view. And so my innocence argument and based on the DNA and my Fifth Amendment rights violation issue was never ruled on the merits. appealed that ruling to the Federal Court of Appeals, which upheld the ruling. My lawyer requested that my lawyer made a re-argument motion requesting that all the judges on the circuit hear the case. Her arguments, which I thought were strong, in that this wasn't a delay by myself or my lawyer, but by the misinformation by the court clerk. I don't think we need a law degree or legal education to know that that argument has validity, but it didn't carry the day. My lawyer argued that the upholding that type of procedural ruling would be to uphold the miscarriage of justice, but and then she also argued that reversing the procedural ruling would open the door to more sophisticated DNA testing, but the court rejected all those arguments. That was Judge Sobie-Pasternack Award and Judge Rosemary Cooler. They declined the re-argument motion, requested to be pressed in front of the whole circuit, and the United States Supreme Court declined to give me permission to appeal to them. So if you follow the narrative, you can see that I just lost 6 appeals just now after that terrible appellate division decision. So I didn't even get that much written. So I wrote letters for 4 years looking for help, hoping that I could somehow find a lawyer or investigator that would take my case for free and find some kind of previously unknown evidence of innocence, without which I was permanently locked out of the courthouse. Eventually, I wound up in touch with an investigator, Claudia Whitman, who connected me to the Innocence Project. Maggie Taylor, who worked there, persuaded the Innocence Project to take my case. She had to re-present it 3 times, arguing, coming up with new theories as to how DNA could be used to constitute something new. At that point, with their representation and with Piero having left office, the new district attorney allowed me to have the testing, and it matched the actual perpetrator, whose DNA was only in the system because left free while I was doing time for this crime. As I mentioned earlier, he killed the 2nd victim. So September 20th, 2006, my conviction was overturned. November 2nd, 2006, at which point all the charges were dismissed against me on actual innocence grounds. I received an acknowledgement of my innocence by the court and the prosecutor in the courtroom, but neither of them or their counterparts were originally involved into the crime. And so I stand here in front of you tonight, the foundation and the mission of trying to free other people. I'm on the cusp of graduating at the end of the year, and is in pursuit of the dream of exonerating more people. As a lawyer, the front row of the courtroom is not enough for me anymore, hence coming to law school. I have the master's at the foundation, but I want to represent some of the clients. And so raising awareness, changing laws, freeing people, that motivates me. And so that's why I do the work that I do. Kind of like John was saying earlier, I feel an obligation to do that. It's self-imposed, but I feel like this is the reason why I'm here in the world. It's how I make sense of everything that happened. And so I'm just one person, the team around me, and trying to get more help to continue to build the foundation stronger, to bring the post-conviction clinic here to the school, and to one day have an organization chapter in each state, and eventually one day in each country, because this is a worldwide problem, it's not an American problem. We just don't hear the exonerations happening because as bad as many problems we have here, we have more in the other countries, so the exonerations aren't happening. That's not to say that the wrongful convictions aren't taking place. They are. They're just not being corrected. So, thank you.
At this point, the panel will take any questions if anyone has.
So Jeff, if it wasn't for the new district attorney, if Bureau was still in office, maybe I would still be in prison?
Yes, I do believe I would still be in prison. There's all the other wrongful conviction cases that her office was involved in. Sullivan Davies, Kianka TV, those are 2 cases that ended in exoneration. I do believe that I would still be in prison if Bureau is still in office. I do. And there's other cases too where prosecutorial misconduct, resulted in injustices, some of which have resulted in reversals.
Where is Bureau now?
She's a judge, another person that's managed to parlay a career into TV. She's a frequent commentator on Fox News, and she has a pair of judge shows, Justice with Janine Pirro. And there was no commission in place, before, and so she's never been held to account, either civilly, criminally, or any other way. She still has a law degree. She could theoretically still practice law should she choose to return that. And by the way, when I finished, when the dust settled, and I finished with all my lawsuits, and I went back to my civil rights lawyer, and I said, the only person that really got away with everything was the trial prosecutor. The federal judge dismissed my lawsuit against him on the prosecutorial immunity grounds. And the judge was right, it's a matter of law. But he mentioned in the footnote, he said that I'm not dismissing because it wasn't a serious allegation and there's no proof. It's just that I'm constrained by the law. You could be holding accountable in another forum. And so when I circled back to my lawyer, I said, look, I want to have a complaint filed. My lawyer told me, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, so nothing's going to happen. So hence the Commission of Prosecutorial Conduct.
Jeff, I just want to take the time to thank you for the work that you do. Last year I was here and I did raise the issue of how wrongful convictions, affect the families and the children, and you heard me and you opened up the forum for it. And I want to thank the other gentlemen and all the people that have been exonerated, because you give me the strength to keep going on, and to hear you say that you care and you want to help is something that means a lot to me. So I thank all of you, especially you, Jeff, because through the years you have been my support. Thank you.
I would like to ask the two gentlemen, how did Garcetta, lead on to you to become suspects in the crimes that were committed?
I can answer that question. In my particular case, he used a pretext to arrest me. On a pretext, I don't know if you know what a pretext is, but pretext is when they use another crime to bring you into the precinct to put you in a lineup for another crime. But the pretext that he arrested me upon wasn't even, they never even charged me when they didn't have the right to pick me up on that. So everything, they never even had probable cause to question me. I think they wanted me to give them information that I didn't have. And when I wasn't able to give it to them, it wasn't no proof.
So he had he had your name and he was
in my case, they had my co-defendant was Haub, who was exonerated 2 this year. They had him in custody maybe 2 days before they actually brought me into custody. So in my imagination, I don't know how they actually, what made them bring me in, but I'm thinking that he tried to say that I was part of his alibi or mention my name or see him that day. And that's what I think made them focusing on me. But in my particular case, they never had a photograph of me in a police station. I was 14 years old. I didn't get picked out of multiple anything. And that's a question that he never answered. He actually denied being involved in my case all the way until we had put him on the stand recently. And like I said, I was the first one to put him on the stand and show him documents that he was actually the lead detective in my case. So I was the first person that actually got him on the stand and exposed the fact that he'd been lying all this year and that he was denying even knowing about my case until the documents showed that he was the lead detective.
Thank you.
In my case, there was an informant that he spoke with in investigating the case, and this informant gave him my name. No evidence, no anything, just said, I think that this person was dead. And so, of course, if someone is accusing you of committing a crime and you be in some place, of course the next question would be, well, how do you know this? So when they asked him that, he said, well, Joe Schmo told me. So, they followed the line and they went to Joe Schmo and they asked him, well, did you tell so-and-so that Sundhe Moses did the case? This guy said, no, I never told him that. To answer your question, that's how they got my name. After they figured out, after they ran into a dead end, that's when they started kind of saying, listen, we're just going to make up something. We're going to get these witnesses to say that it was him. We're gonna do all these different things. So that's how they got my name, and that's how they ran with the story with really no physical evidence whatsoever.
On the new commission that was just enacted in New York, is there any can you go back to prosecutors, or is it just moving forward for any prosecutorial misconduct?
I think they do have the authority to go back, but my guess is they're going to be looking at more current cases. I mean, or cases that are still in the pipeline, cases where courts have spoken and sometimes spoken harshly about the conduct of the prosecutor, and if that prosecutor is still a prosecutor, the commission would have the authority to investigate their conduct as disciplinary violence of any lawyer who has committed professional misconduct.
All right, I got a question. All right, I would just to let everybody know, my name is Anthony DiPippo. I was framed by one of the main contributors to Jeffrey Deskovic's wrongful conviction, Daniel Stevens. I got a civil judgment, so I really can't talk too much on that. But I want to talk to John. I follow you on Instagram, and you got a great Instagram post. You got a prison literacy program, so you're going back to help the people with books. You're giving books, and you're involved. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I actually work on Racket Center right now twice out the week. I started a literacy program close to 2 years ago when I got my conviction vacated, because before I got fully exonerated, being vacated was the biggest thing to me. It felt like it gave my life a new leap. And like I told you, when I was 14, this happened to me. I couldn't read. So during this time when they decided to appeal my decision, instead of me falling back into a state of depression, saying, damn, I waited all this time to get to this point and they still want to slap me in my face again, I put that energy into something constructive instead of me going down another path, you know what I'm saying? And I devoted all that energy into an organization called A Voice for Unheard, and trying to get books and literature back into guys on the inside, because I understood that, my situation, that they might not have anyone on the outside and to actually look out for them. And I feel like I grew up in a crack epidemic in an urban community, and the role models that we had to look up to was kids. And due to the fact that I got a platform like such, and even though when I went through my situation, me being inside of some of the harshest prisons in the state, I feel like ignorance was a dominating factor, where to the point of where it controlled the popularity of who is who inside the prison. Like, some of the most ignorant, negative people could dominate if they was forceful. And we know this because we was in that situation. I want to stand up and rewrite that code of conduct and let them know that you can be about something, and you can stand for something constructive, and don't got to be of that type of mentality, and be a strong character, be a role model, and be a strong warrior out here today. And that's basically what my organization is based around: self-control, self-love, and self-empowerment. I feel like I don't focus on the negative aspects of what happened to me. I try to move forward and focus on what I can do to help keep individuals from going back inside of their they experiencing it right now, and to stop some of the younger generation from actually experiencing it, before they go into it.
Well, I just want to say, I don't got a microphone, but salute.
Thank you, brother.
Well, I have a microphone here. If each of you had a magic wand, what would you say we should do to maximally help people who are in prison now to prove their innocence? And what would we have to do to protect people in the future from being caught in this terrible situation? And since you have a magic wand, you can act on it.
In terms of prevention, I kind of discussed the reforms earlier, You know, so I think enacting all those would certainly enhance the preventive aspect of it. You know, I don't think that prosecutorial immunity is a good idea. I mean, police don't have it, other forensic experts don't have it, and they're not prevented from doing their job. And so I think that would be another step in the right direction in terms of freeing people. I feel like we need more innocence organizations. We need to strengthen the ones that exist, and you know, we need more people who are going to take on wrongful conviction cases on a pro bono basis, because you know, if you're wrongfully convicted, chances are you don't have the resources in order to hire paid lawyers, and a lot of the innocence organizations only handle the DNA cases, and that's only around 5 to 12%. So that would be my short answer on that question.
I think also that voting, putting pressure on local politicians to make sure that wrongful conviction is on the table as a topic. And if it is not addressed as a topic, that they won't get the backing of the community. One of the things that I've learned is that even with people having good intentions, right, sometimes politics can get inside the way. I mean, with sitting down and meeting many people and talking about wrongful convictions, there's not one person that ever said, I think what you're saying is wrong, or I think what you're saying is incorrect. Everybody nodded their head and said, you know what, you're right. But their area of interest lied somewhere else. Again, lowering crime versus stopping wrongful convictions. A very thin line of the same road. But politicians need and have to make wrongful convictions a topic, and for too long, they haven't made it a pressing topic. And it bothers me that a guy like Scarcella can not only be not prosecuted, but also collects a pension from everybody who pays taxes, right? And so ultimately what we're doing is we're paying him for what he did. And that's ridiculous when you look at that. And so to highlight his case and many other cases across the country to politicians and local politicians to put pressure on them that, you know, the community now is not going to back anyone that doesn't have that topic on the table. And I think that the way that that happens is that we garner interest, meaning that the public would agree with that if they knew that because of wrongful convictions, perpetrators go on free and go on to commit crimes in that very same community. And so I think that that would spur at least some communities to say, you know what, we have an interest in making sure that our local politicians bring up this case, because we have people that are committing crimes who are not supposed to be on the street.
I think that conviction review units within the district attorney's office, when those are legit, you know, most of the time, you know, a lot of them they're not. But like in Brooklyn, when Ken Thompson was alive, for example, you know, the 23 people were exonerated in 2.5 years. I mean, obviously, I don't agree with what his office did in John Giuca's case, but the rest of the cases, you know, most of the time he did, you know, a lot of people free that weren't. I think that we need to have citizens to stop getting out of jury duty, because what happens there is that think about who's going to be sitting on the jury. So if you're interested in learning more about the topics, there's a really good film about criminal justice in general that covers 2 wrongful convictions. I was an executive producer of that, one of many. I had a small role, to be sure. That was called Survivor's Guide to Prison, so I would suggest you check that out. There's another talk show which I consult on and appear on the air. It's called Psychologics, combination of psychology and politics. So you can look at that on the videos on YouTube. Jeff Bloom, who's with us here tonight, has the show 360 Degrees of Success, and I appear on this show a lot, and we cover wrongful conviction topics, so those are a few different ways that you can learn more about it. And so I think our time tonight is closed. I'm sorry if I had the program a little too long, but I was trying to do a lot, maybe a little too much, but I was trying to bring a good educational forum, and I wanted to give voice to people that normally wouldn't get it. Well, normally you would never get family members getting a platform, and I'm trying to share the light and the platform, almost like you were saying, John, and so that's how I maybe overdid a little bit. So to that extent, I'm sorry, that was on me. But thanks for listening to us, and thank you.